In the life of the church, every Sunday the readings are assigned. We have a 3-year cycle. And so in 26 years of ordained ministry, I've read all of them almost 9 times now as we go through. But this one tonight, I've read 26 times now because we read this one every year. And I got to tell you, after 2,000 years, I have a new take on the whole thing. God came among us as one of us. We gather to tell this same story every year because it continues to be good news for us. When we hear the text, it's familiar to us. Even if you're not here every Sunday, you're like, that's right, who is that guy Quirinius, and why does he always come up? It's a story about placing Jesus Christ in human history. We hear about Emperor Augustus. We hear about Quirinius being governor of Syria. We hear this point in time when God crashed among us, not as someone perhaps from the Marvel universe, not as the kind of hero that our reading of the news would suggest that we need to sort out the things that need sorting in this world and in our own lives, but rather as a baby who is likely crying and cold, to young parents who had no place to be but a stable. That is how humankind first came face to face with God in human history. And there were tears. Tears. What does that say to us about our God? Choosing to come among us in that way, like one of us. A very human story, right? A very human. In fact, we might even say quintessentially so in some ways. We know this story. It's our story. It is God's story. Now, when we gather on Christmas Eve to tell this story, there's a lot of other things going on because the world around us tells us lots of things about what Christmas is supposed to be about. I know for myself, this year in particular, not quite sure why, I've been thinking a lot about when I was a kid and thinking about getting ready for Christmas from a kid's angle in the 1970s in suburban Chicago. It was a question of, is it going to be a white Christmas, right? That was the big thing. Remember the one year my dad hired a youth kid from church to come and shovel the roof because there had been so much snow. Just inconceivable. There's a guy on our roof. But as Christmas gets closer, my brother and I would test all the different shoes we had in our closets to see which ones were the quietest to get past mom and dad's bedroom, to see what the situation at the tree looked like. Now, you'll notice that many, many Christmas gifts, especially when you are a child, are for you as an individual. Not all of them, but many of them are, right? They have your name on it. This is your gift. Not all of them, but most of them do. Those gifts are fun. The one you have to share with your brother, it's okay, but it's not the best, right? The ones that are the best are the ones that are for us. And God comes on Christmas and says, hey, guess what? I have a gift for all of you. Oh, okay. My brother and I did get a joint gift that I remember one year. It was big enough that it wasn't wrapped. And we snuck down and saw it under the tree. Because it wasn't wrapped, my folks waited until the night before to put it out. And there it was, laid out in front of the tree, a 4-person wooden toboggan. It was cool. So my brother and I had to try it out immediately, right? And so we had the clear Wonder Bread boot liner sleeves, right? And threw on the boots and got out of the house to get out and use it on these hills that now when I go back as an adult I can't find. They seemed huge back then. But what was interesting about it is that we played it out. We were sledding until we were wet, cold, exhausted. The sun was going down. We went in, and then the next morning, we realized we had left the toboggan outside, and it had snowed a lot. And if you're from places like that, you know you can lose things that way, or at least lose them until April, right? We even had the neighbor come by with ski poles, no luck. You'd think it was big enough, you'd find it, but no. So in the spring, it shows up and it's warped. The wood is warped from being so wet. And I was thinking about the kind of gifts that we get and how they're special for a moment. All of us, particularly if we've had kids or if you've by chance been a kid, you know that there is a lot of toys that are really, really exciting for a fixed number of hours after they are opened. And then sometimes they get lost. They get put aside. They get forgotten, broken, forgotten about. I think when we think of Christmas this year, this gift that we have received, this gift that is good and news, something that is given to all of us, is not really something that is something we can put aside and lose. It's always there. The question is, do we notice? Do we realize? Do we see? I think Christ coming among us at this time of year when we think about this story, when the days are so short, reminds us that God crashes in when we need God the most, when things seem most hopeless, when we can't manage the path forward. All of those moments that seem so without hope, Christ comes among us in that moment. And any story that includes a baby says that there might be tears, but it's okay. God's coming among us brings hope and life, and our reminder is that it is a gift for all of us, today, tomorrow, next year, something that is good and something that continues to be news. Amen. Please stand as you are able.